No one in the hospital thought she would survive the night. The machines beeped in steady, fragile rhythm, as if every second was a coin tossed between life and death. Victoria Hale, the iron-willed CEO who had once ruled over boardrooms like a queen, now lay pale and breathless under the glare of white lights. Her company's billions couldn't help her now. Her lawyers and partners couldn't bargain with death. Even the finest doctors in the country stood with hands tied, whispering desperate updates into trembling phones. Nothing worked. No treatment, no medicine, no donor. They had exhausted everything except one miracle that was about to walk through the sliding glass doors, wearing an old army jacket and holding the tiny hand of a little girl. That man was Daniel Cross. To the world, he was a single dad living paycheck to paycheck, picking up handyman jobs, sometimes mopping floors in places where people in suits didn't even look at him. But inside him beat the heart of a soldier who had bled for his brothers on battlefields far away. Inside him flowed blood that carried scars, survival, and something no one knew could change the course of a powerful woman's destiny. Daniel had no idea he was walking straight into a moment that would not only save a life, but also rewrite his own story up and bind it forever with hers. It started when Daniel brought his daughter, Lily, to the hospital for a routine checkup. She was 7, bright-eyed, with a sketchbook always tucked under her arm. While he filled out her forms, Lily wandered too close to the restricted doors and overheard nurses whispering about the CEO who won't make it till morning. Lily tugged her father's sleeve, her voice soft yet urgent. "Daddy, that lady's dying. Can't you help her?" He smiled sadly. "Sweetheart, Daddy's not a doctor." But then the nurse's voice carried again. "Her body is rejecting every transfusion. Nothing matches. If we don't find a miracle blood donor, she's gone." Daniel froze. Something in those words struck deep, like a radio frequency only he could hear. His blood type was rare, one he had been told countless times in the army might be the difference between life and death. He hadn't thought about it in years. But Lily, with a child's pure conviction, looked up at him and whispered, "Maybe your blood is her miracle." Within minutes, Daniel was standing in front of skeptical doctors. They shook their heads, saying, "Sir, we've tested everyone in her circle family, employees, private donors. She's beyond saving. Even if you matched, it's too late." But Daniel didn't move. His voice was steady, the same voice he once used to command soldiers under fire. "Test me. You don't get to quit while a life still beats." Something about his conviction made the chief surgeon nod, almost against his own hopelessness. A vial of his blood was drawn, and what came back shocked the entire room. A perfect, flawless match. Not just compatibly, almost unnaturally ideal. The kind of match that happened once in a lifetime. When they rushed Daniel into the transfusion chamber, the room grew tense. Machines hummed. Tubes filled with red rivers that connected a dying billionaire to a struggling single father. Daniel squeezed his daughter's hand before going in, whispering, "Daddy's just going to share a little of what kept him alive." Lily, too young to understand the depth, whispered back, "Make her better, Daddy." The moment his blood flowed into Victoria Hale's veins, monitors flickered, the erratic beeping steadied, her shallow breathing deepened, color returned to her lips as if someone had painted life back into her. The doctors exchanged wide-eyed looks, muttering words they hadn't dared to use: reversal, stabilization, recovery. For the first time in weeks, hope wasn't a cruel joke, it was real. Daniel stayed longer than he thought, tethered to the tubes, giving more than anyone expected, until his body grew weak. Yet even as dizziness clouded his vision, he felt something profound, that the woman on the other side of the bed wasn't just receiving blood, she was receiving every drop of survival, sacrifice, and endurance he had carried from the war to fatherhood. Their lives were knitting together in crimson threads. Hours later, when the danger passed and Victoria Hale opened her eyes, the first thing she saw wasn't her lawyers, her board members, or her so-called friends. It was a weary man slumped in a chair, a little girl curled against him, both asleep. She had been alone at the edge of death, and these strangers, so ordinary, invisible to her world, were the reason she breathed again. She whispered, her voice rasping, Bo broken bar is he? The doctor smiled faintly. The man who saved you when no one else could. But this was only the beginning, because Victoria Hale wasn't the kind of woman to let a debt go unpaid. And Daniel Cross wasn't the kind of man to walk away after saving a life. Their worlds had collided in blood, but what would come next to love, trust, redemption would test them both more than any battlefield or boardroom ever could. And as Daniel would later say directly to you, the viewer, with the same steady eyes, they all failed to save her, until fate brought me there with nothing but my daughter and my blood. And that's how everything changed.